The records of those who carried out the Igbo genocide make no pretenses, offer no excuses whatsoever about the goal of their dreadful mission. Such was the maniacal insouciance and the rabid Igbophobia that propelled the project. The principal language used in the prosecution of the genocide was Hausa. The words of the ghoulish anthem of the genocide, published and broadcast on Kaduna radio and television throughout the duration of the crime, are in Hausa. I just quote, Muje mukashe nyamiri, mukashe mazansu de ya mazansu, muchi matansu de ya matansu, mukwashe kayansu, unquote. The English translation goes like this. Let's go kill the damned Igbo. Kill off their men and boys. Rape their wives and daughters. Cut off their property. The Hausa word for war is yaki, Y-A-K-I. Whilst Hausa speakers would employ the word to refer to the involvement, combat services of their grandfathers, fathers, uncles, sons, brothers, and other friends or relatives in Burma, reference to World War II Burma or contemporary Myanmar, military campaigns, and others in Southeast Asia fighting for the British against the Japanese, or even in the post-1960s Africa-based peacekeeping military engagements in West, East, and Central Africa, they rarely use yaki to describe the May 1966 to January 1970 mass murders of Igbo people. In Hausa speak, the latter is either referred to, and I quote, as Lokochi Mukashe Nyamiri, unquote. English translation, when we murdered the damned Igbo. Or, quote, Lokochi Munakashe Nyamiri, unquote. English translation, when we were murdering the damned Igbo, unquote. Pointedly, this Lokochi, when, time, conflates the time frames that encapsulate the two phases of the genocide, May 1966 to October 1966, and July 1967 to January 1970. A reminder, if one is required, for those who bizarrely, if not mischievously, wish to break this organic link. Elsewhere, genocidist documentation on this crime is equally malevolent and brazenly vulgar. A study of the genocide time, post-genocide era interviews, comments, broadcasts, and writings on the campaign by key genocide commanders, commandants, and theorists is at once revealing and profoundly troubling. Benjamin Adekunle, a notoriously gruesome commander, had no qualms indeed in boasting about the goal of this horrendous mission when he told an August 1968 press conference attended by journalists, including those from the international media, and I quote, "We shoot at everything that moves, and when our forces march into the center of Igbo territory, we shoot at everything, even at things that do not move," unquote. True to type, Adekunle duly carried through his threat with clinical precision, both on his everything that moves targeting, particularly in South Igbo land, where his forces slaughtered hundreds of thousands, and on things that do not move assault category, and on things that do not move assault category. Adekunle's gratuitous destruction of the famed Igbo economic infrastructure, one of the most advanced in Africa of the era, was indescribably barbaric. A brief review of Olusegun Obasanjo's own contribution, published in his memoirs entitled, appropriately, My Command, that focuses on his May 1969 direct orders to his Air Force to destroy an international Red Cross aircraft carrying relief supplies to the encircled and blockaded Igbo, is crucially appropriate. Obasanjo had, quote, challenged, unquote, had challenged Captain Badamasi King. This is a genocidist Air Force pilot who he had known since 1966 to, quote, produce results, unquote, in stopping further international relief flight deliveries to the Igbo. Within a week of this infamous challenge, 5th June 1969, Obasanjo recalls nostalgically, Badamasi King redeemed his promise. Badamasi King had shot down a clearly marked incoming relief-bearing international DC-7 plane near Eket, South Biafra, with the loss of his 3-person crew. Obasanjo's perverse satisfaction over the aftermath of this horrendous crime is fiendish, chillingly revolting. He writes in his memoirs, and I quote, "The effect of this singular achievement of the Air Force, especially on the 3 Marine Commando Division," that is the notorious unit of Obasanjo, who later becomes Nigeria's head of regime for 11 years commanded, was profound. It raised morale of all service personnel, especially of the Air Force detachment concerned and the troops they supported in my Marine Commando Division, unquote. Yet, despite the huffing and puffing, the raving commanding brute is essentially a coward who lacks the courage to face up to a world totally outraged by his gruesome crime. Instead, Obasanjo, the quintessential Caliban, cringes into a stupor and beckons to his prosperous British Prime Minister Harold Wilson, as he, Obasanjo, indeed unashamedly acknowledges in his My Command, that is in his memoirs, to sort out the raging international outcry generated by the destruction of the ICRC plane. There was an extensive coverage of the Igbo genocide in international media throughout the duration. The United Nations never condemned this atrocity unequivocally. UTHAMT, its Secretary General, consistently maintained that it was, quote, a Nigerian internal affair, unquote. The United Nations could have stopped the genocide. The United Nations should have stopped the genocide instead of protecting the interests of the Nigerian state, the very perpetrator of this crime. In the wake of the Jewish genocide of the 1930s, 1940s, during which 6 million Jews were murdered by Nazi Germany, Africa was, with hindsight, most cruelly unlucky to have been the testing ground for the presumed global community's resolve to fight genocide subsequently, particularly after the 1948 historic United Nations Declaration on this crime against humanity. Only a few would have failed to note that Utham's reference to internal was staggeringly disingenuous, as genocide, as was demonstrated devastatingly 20 to 30 years earlier on in Europe, would of course occur within some territoriality, which is internal, where the perpetrator exercises a permanent or limited, partial, temporary socio-economic control, compared with Nazi Germany and its program to destroy its Jewish population within Germany itself, Nazi Germany and its program to destroy Jewish populations within those countries, Europe, under its occupation from 1939 to 1945. Between 1966 and 2006, the world would witness genocide carried out against the Igbo, the Tutsi, some Hutu, and Darfuri in internal spaces that go by the names Nigeria, Rwanda, and the Sudan, respectively. The contours of the territory where genocide is executed do not, therefore, make the perpetrators less culpable, nor the crime permissible, as United Nations' crucial 1948 Genocide Declaration states unambiguously. The very central role played by Britain in support of the Igbo genocide no doubt reinforced the scandalous failure of the United Nations to protect Igbo people during this catastrophe.